The first time Karen called the cops on me, I was pressure washing my own driveway. That should tell you everything you need to know about the woman who lived across the street. She wasn't even subtle about it, just marched out in her pink slippers, robe flapping like a flag of self-righteousness, phone in hand, and started filming me like I was committing a felony against the Homeowners Association's sense of order. "You're damaging the community property," she shouted. Her voice could peel paint off the fence. "That sidewalk belongs to the HOA. "It's my driveway, Karen," I said, trying not to laugh. "You can still see the tire stains from my truck." She ignored logic the way cats ignore recall command. She marched right up to the invisible border between our properties and raised her phone higher. "You're being hostile. I'll have to report this. We don't tolerate vandalism here." It was one of those absurd moments where you start doubting your own reality. The kind where you glance around for hidden cameras because, surely, someone's filming a prank show. Except, in my neighborhood, the only cameras belong to the HOA's self-appointed surveillance queen, Karen Whitmore, age 50-something, divorced twice, armed with a clipboard and a bottomless reservoir of outrage. I'd only moved here 3 weeks earlier. My wife, Jenna, and I bought the place after she was promoted to sheriff of our county, a job that came with a badge, a gun, and a never-ending supply of people who underestimated her because she looked 10 years younger than her rank suggested. We wanted peace. A lake view, a big porch, somewhere she could decompress after long shift. Instead, we got a suburban war zone disguised as Whispering Pines Estates. The HOA had rules about everything: grass height, fence color, even what time you could wheel out your trash bins. But most people just lived their lives. Karen, however, treated every guideline like it was divine scripture. The morning after we moved in, she left a welcome notice taped to our mailbox. It wasn't a card or cookies. It was a list of common violations to avoid, highlighted in neon yellow. I laughed it off until I realized she wasn't joking. That first week, she filed 3 complaints, one about my oversized pickup, one about the reflective surface of our solar panels, and one accusing me of harboring an unauthorized pet. The pet in question was a golden retriever named Duke, registered, vaccinated, and apparently guilty of wagging his tail too close to her azaleas. So, when she called the cops that morning over a pressure washer, I shouldn't have been surprised. What I didn't expect was the level of commitment. She stood on her porch, pacing, narrating her version of events like a live-stream commentator. "Yes, officer, he's defacing HOA property as we speak. No, I don't feel safe approaching him." I turned off the washer and watched her wave frantically at the street as a patrol car rolled up. The young deputy inside stepped out, looking both confused and apologetic. He recognized me instantly. Hey Marcus," he said. "Morning, Tyler." I smiled. "Karen keeping you busy?" Karen froze. "You know him?" Tyler scratched the back of his neck. "Marcus is Jenna Reed's husband." Karen's face twitched. "Who's Jenna Reed?" "Sheriff Reed," he said. I'll never forget the way the color drained from Karen's face. She blinked twice, like she was buffering reality. Then she forced a laugh that sounded like someone stepping on bubble wrap. "Oh, of course. Small world. I just wanted to make sure everything was in accordance with community standards." Tyler gave me a look that said, "Good luck with that," before heading back to his cruiser. That should have been the end of it. But Karen was like a wasp. You swat her once, and she doubles down. By week 2, she'd escalated from phone calls to formal notices. Handwritten letters on HOA stationery appeared in my mailbox daily, each more absurd than the last. One accused me of displaying law enforcement paraphernalia in plain view. The item in question? Jenna's patrol SUV parked in our own driveway. I called the actual HOA president, a mild-mannered retiree named Bill Sanders, to clarify things. Bill sighed so deeply I thought he might deflate. "She's been overzealous lately," he said. "Technically, she's head of the compliance committee, but she doesn't speak for the board." "Then why does she have HOA letterhead?" She printed her own. Bill promised to talk to her, which was HOA speak for doing absolutely nothing. That evening, Jenna came home in uniform, exhausted but amused. I handed her the latest letter. She read it twice, then laughed so hard she had to set down her badge. You know what? Let her call again. Next time, I'll answer. I grinned. You're enjoying this too much. I deal with meth labs and stolen cars all day, she said. A suburban tyrant with a clipboard? That's practically therapy. The next morning, Karen found a new crusade. She decided my fence violated aesthetic harmony. Never mind that every house on the street had a different style of fence. She paced along the boundary like a general inspecting troops, muttering into her phone. When I asked what she was doing, she said, documenting violations for the record. I pointed to my side of the property. Everything inside this line is mine. She smiled that tight, artificial smile that could curdle milk. We'll see about that. That afternoon, a new letter arrived, not from her, but from the HOA board. It requested I attend a compliance hearing regarding multiple infractions. The date was circled in red. When I showed Jenna, she raised an eyebrow. A hearing? She's fast. Apparently I'm destroying the neighborhood. Or she's scared we might be above her pay grade, Jenna said. Control freaks hate uncertainty. The hearing was scheduled for Saturday morning at the clubhouse. I almost didn't go, until Jenna suggested attending in full uniform. Purely coincidental, she said, deadpan. I knew she was joking, but the idea lodged in my head. Maybe a little reality check would finally calm Karen down. Saturday came. I showed up 5 minutes early. The board sat at a long table like a budget courtroom. Bill looked apologetic. Karen sat beside him, papers neatly stacked, eyes glittering with anticipation. Mr. Reed, she began before anyone else could speak, we have received numerous complaints about your non-compliance with HOA standards. You've exhibited aggression toward committee members, maintained unsanctioned structures, and engaged in public defiance. Public defiance? I asked. You pressure-washed, she said, as if announcing a murder. Bill cleared his throat. Let's remain professional. I leaned back, calm. Do you have photographic evidence? Karen produced a folder thicker than a court brief. 74 images. Time-stamped. It would have been impressive if half of them weren't blurry photos of Duke or my truck. One even showed Jenna walking to her car. Interesting, I said. You're aware my wife's vehicle is official law enforcement property, right? Karen didn't flinch. No one is above HOA policy. The board members exchanged glances. Bill rubbed his temples. Perhaps we should pause here. Karen interrupted. I've already filed an incident report with the county sheriff's office. I smiled slowly. Oh, you did you? Yes, she said, triumphant. They'll be sending someone today to verify my claims. Right on cue, tires crunched outside. A patrol SUV pulled up. Jenna stepped out, uniform crisp, badge gleaming. She walked in like she owned the place, which, in a way, she did. Karen's jaw slackened. What are you doing here? Jenna set her hat on the table. Responding to a report of alleged vandalism. She flipped through the file, eyes scanning the photos. Looks like a misunderstanding. Karen's voice wavered. You're Sheriff Reed. That's right, Jenna said. And you must be Karen Whitmore. We've heard a lot about you. The silence that followed was glorious. Bill looked like he might faint from relief. The other board members pretended to study their papers. Karen's composure cracked for the first time. I was only trying to uphold standards. Jenna smiled politely. Understandable. But filing false reports wastes county resources. Next time, just call me directly. Saves everyone the paperwork. She handed Karen a business card, turned, and gestured for me to follow. Outside, as we walked to the SUV, Jenna chuckled. That went well. I grinned. Think she'll calm down now? Jenna started the engine. Karen? Oh no. She just declared war on the sheriff's household. And she was right. Because 2 days later, Karen escalated in a way that made the pressure washer incident look like a warm-up act. I woke up 2 mornings later to the sound of hammering. Not the normal kind of hammering that comes from construction, but the chaotic, frantic rhythm of someone trying to make a point with every hit. When I stepped outside, Karen was in full battle gear. Sun visor, gloves, clipboard in one hand, hammer in the other, nailing a bright orange notice of violation directly onto my fence. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand. "Morning, neighbor. You couldn't just tape it like a normal human?" She didn't look up. "This is official HOA enforcement procedure." "Since when does that involve damaging private property?" She jabbed the last nail in and stepped back, admiring her work like she'd just planted a victory flag. "You've been cited for obstruction of community access. This fence is non-compliant and restricts shared pathways." I blinked. "Shared pathways? That's my backyard." Karen adjusted her visor, voice rising like she was addressing an audience. "I received multiple reports that children can't safely walk through the greenway behind your home." "Because it's fenced," I said. "As in, not a public trail." "That's the point." "Exactly. You've taken a communal area and privatized it." "Karen, the HOA map literally ends 2 lots before mine. The rest is my land. I even paid for the survey." She crossed her arms. "We'll see about that." There it was again, her battle cry. Every conversation with her ended on that note, as if the universe itself would eventually rearrange to prove her right. By noon, she'd filed another complaint, this time demanding a boundary reassessment. Bill, the weary HOA president, called me apologetically. "She's been persistent," he said. "She's convinced the property lines were redrawn illegally." "Illegally?" I repeated. "You think I forged a plat map?" He sighed. "She's already requested county verification. They'll probably send someone to check." Jenna laughed when I told her. "She's filing property disputes now? What's next? Claiming your lawn belongs to her ancestors." "Don't give her ideas." But Jenna's amusement faded when she realized Karen had actually called the county assessor's office. Within 2 days, a white county vehicle pulled into our street. Out stepped a young man with a clipboard and a laser measurer, looking both polite and terrified. "Mr. Reed," he asked, "we got a complaint about property encroachment." I pointed across the street. "Let me guess who filed it." He didn't answer, but his eyes said everything. Karen was already waiting at the curb, hands clasped like a prosecutor awaiting a verdict. "Thank you for coming," she said sweetly. "I've been deeply concerned about unlawful modifications to the greenway." The poor guy measured, remeasured, and finally said, "The fence is entirely on Mr. Reed's property. No encroachment detected." Karen's smile faltered. "That can't be right." "It's what the survey says," he replied. "You can request a copy." When he left, she turned on me like a storm front. "You must have bribed someone." I nearly spat my coffee. "Yes, I bribed the county over a 6-foot fence." She pointed her clipboard at me like a weapon. "You think this is funny, but the HOA takes integrity seriously. I'll be reporting this to the board. I think they're tired of hearing your voice more than I am." That earned me a glare that could curdle milk. She stormed off, muttering something about abuse of authority. Later that evening, while Jenna was on patrol, I got home to find an unfamiliar SUV idling in front of our house. A man stepped out wearing a navy blazer with a gold HOA badge embroidered on the pocket. Apparently, Karen had leveled up her game. "Good afternoon, Mr. Reed," he said stiffly. "I'm Greg from the HOA Regional Compliance Committee. I received a request to review an ongoing dispute." I raised an eyebrow. "Regional? You mean Karen called your boss's boss?" "Technically, yes. She escalated the matter claiming there were intimidating behaviors." I almost laughed. "She filmed me mowing the lawn last week. Am I intimidating when I mow?" He frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "We just need to verify that no residents are being harassed." Harassed? She's the one pounding nails into my fence. He cleared his throat. We'll just make some notes. Karen appeared moments later, hair perfect, voice syrupy sweet. I'm so glad you came, Greg. It's been unbearable living under constant threat. I stared at her, incredulous. What threat? You've been filming me, she snapped. I installed security cameras, because someone's been trespassing onto my lawn at night. Greg raised an eyebrow. Do you have footage? Sure, I said. Want to see who's been walking up my driveway at 2 a.m.? That shut Karen up faster than a power outage. Greg hesitated. I think I've seen enough. The next day, a new email arrived from the HOA board. All pending complaints against homeowner Marcus Reed have been closed. I thought that would end it. But Karen didn't lose gracefully. Losing made her creative. 2 nights later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up again, different unit this time. I recognized the responding officer through the window. Deputy Mitchell, one of Jenna's subordinates. Evening, he said. We got a report of a noise disturbance. Power tools after hours. I blinked. I was inside watching TV. Karen emerged from her porch, arms crossed, voice shrill. He's running illegal construction equipment. Listen. The only sound was Duke snoring on the porch. Mitchell gave me a look that screamed I'm sorry. Just had to check it out, sir. No problem, I said, smiling. Tell Jenna I'll save her some pie. Karen froze. Jenna. Mitchell tipped his hat. Sheriff Reed, ma'am. Her face went crimson. This is abuse of power. You're all colluding. He smiled politely. Ma'am, it's my job to respond when someone calls 911. Maybe stop calling unless it's an emergency. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, realizing how ridiculous she sounded. As Mitchell left, she glared at me across the street. You think you can hide behind your wife's badge? You'll regret this. That last line was said with the kind of venom that only comes from bruised pride. I didn't know what she meant then, but the next morning, I found out. Jenna called me on her lunch break. Hey, did you file an internal complaint against me? I nearly dropped my phone. What? Of course not. Well, someone did. Anonymous report claiming I'm using my position to intimidate civilians. I swore under my breath. Karen. Most likely, Jenna said calmly. But it's being reviewed by the oversight board, so I'll need to submit a statement. I clenched my jaw. She's not just going after me now. She's targeting your job. She's desperate, Jenna said. People like her need control. When they lose it, they reach higher. That night, Jenna came home quiet. She tried to brush it off, but I could tell it was bothering her. A baseless complaint could still cause weeks of bureaucratic pain. I'd spent years watching her build that reputation. The idea of some suburban tyrant tarnishing it over a fence made my blood boil. I decided it was time to stop playing defense. The next morning, I set up a few motion-activated cameras around the property. Properly visible, legally compliant. Then I started documenting everything. Dates, times, every interaction, every letter. That's when I noticed something strange. Around 2 a.m. each night, someone kept triggering the camera near the side gate. Always the same shadowy figure, tall, moving quickly, holding a flashlight. The next time it happened, I was ready. I waited inside, lights off, coffee in hand, Duke by my side. The moment the motion alert buzzed my phone, I slipped out quietly. There she was, Karen, standing by the fence, shining her flashlight at the boundary posts, muttering into her phone. I stepped closer. Evening, Karen. Doing a little midnight gardening? She jumped back, nearly dropping the light. You scared me. I was checking property markers. At 2 in the morning? It's cooler at night. I smirked. Smile for the camera. That's trespassing. Her eyes darted toward the blinking red light of the security cam. For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't have a comeback. She just stormed off, whispering something about calling her lawyer. By sunrise, I had crystal-clear footage and a file full of complaints to return the favor. Jenna reviewed it over breakfast. "Perfect," she said. "Let's do this by the book. You report it. I'll stay out of it." That afternoon, I walked into the county office and filed a formal complaint for harassment and trespassing against Karen Whitmore. But when the notice reached her mailbox 2 days later, she didn't retreat. She retaliated. She called the sheriff's department again. And this time, she didn't just ask for an officer. She demanded a full investigation into me. I got the call at 9 in the morning. The voice on the other end was official, clipped, the kind that never calls unless there's paperwork attached. "Mr. Reed, this is Sergeant Collins from the Sheriff's Department. We've received a complaint involving alleged misconduct and property dispute. We'd like you to come down to the station for a brief statement." I almost laughed. "You mean my wife's station?" He hesitated. "Yes, sir. But for impartiality, this is being handled by an external unit." That told me everything I needed to know. Karen had gone over Jenna's head, straight to the regional office. She wasn't satisfied ruining our mornings anymore. She was now aiming for headlines. When I arrived at the department, the front desk deputy, a rookie named Wilson, looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. "Mr. Reed, they're expecting you in Conference Room B." Conference Room B was where serious stuff happened: interviews, disciplinary reviews, press briefings. I walked in to find 2 unfamiliar officers, both from a neighboring county, sitting with clipboards. One of them gestured to the chair across from him. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming. We're just following up on a civilian complaint. Shouldn't take long." I sat down, calm but burning inside. "What's the nature of the complaint?" The officer read from his note. "Allegations of harassment, misuse of authority through personal connections with law enforcement, and intimidation of an HOA representative." I exhaled through my nose. "Let me guess, Karen Whitmore?" The second officer nodded. "That's correct. She claims you've been using your wife's position as sheriff to threaten her into dropping legitimate HOA complaints." I smiled faintly. "Did she happen to mention the part where she's been trespassing on my property at 2 in the morning?" They exchanged glances. "She mentioned nightly patrols, yes." "Good," I said. "Because I have her on camera doing it. High-resolution video, time-stamped, with her muttering about property lines." Their pens froze midair. I handed them a flash drive. Every interaction, every letter, every false report, documented. If she's trying to claim intimidation, I'd love to see how that fits with breaking and entering. The older officer took the drive carefully, like it might explode. "We'll review this, Mr. Reed. You do that. And while you're at it, check how many 911 calls she's made in the last month. I'm guessing double digits." By the time I left the station, word had already spread. Small towns have the communication speed of a gossip-fueled internet. Deputies were whispering, dispatchers were smirking, and Jenna was waiting in her office, leaning against her desk with arms crossed. "Well," she said, "you made an impression. Let me guess, they briefed you?" She grinned. "Let's just say the complaint didn't age well once they saw the footage. Collins said it's the most thorough counter-documentation he's ever seen." "Good," I said. "Maybe she'll finally stop." But she didn't. Of course she didn't. That evening, Karen marched down our driveway again, this time with an audience. 2 board members trailed behind her like reluctant bodyguards, while she carried a manila folder thick enough to choke a shredder. "Mr. Reed," she began, her voice dripping with artificial calm, "the HOA board has decided to pursue mediation regarding your repeated aggression and non-compliance." I tilted my head. "Aggression? You mean existing? You've created a hostile living environment," she said. "Your wife's position is a conflict of interest, and the HOA cannot function properly under intimidation." "Karen, the HOA barely functions under gravity," I said. "And my wife's job doesn't exempt you from basic reality." Her nostrils flared. "Then perhaps the county will have to intervene." Bill, the HOA president, stepped forward quickly. Let's not go that far, Karen. Maybe we can. No, she snapped. He's weaponizing his connections. That's corruption. Jenna appeared behind me then, still in uniform, expression calm but eyes sharp. Corruption, she repeated. That's a strong word. Care to clarify? Karen blinked, caught off guard. Oh, Sheriff Reed, I didn't mean you personally. It's just appearances. Appearances, Jenna said evenly, don't involve false reports or trespassing. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the crickets reconsidering their timing. Karen's voice cracked slightly. You have no proof. I stepped aside and pointed at the security monitor in our entryway. Live feed from the cameras, one showing her standing at our fence with a flashlight, date and time stamped clear as day. Bill's mouth fell open. Karen, is that you? Her eyes darted wildly. That's taken out of context. Context being? Jenna asked. You conducting midnight property inspections? Karen clutched her folder tighter. This is harassment. Bill muttered. You nailed a notice to his fence, Karen. She rounded on him. You're all complicit. None of you understand the rules. The other board member finally spoke, voice tired. Maybe you should take a break, Karen. Fine, she said, trembling with rage. But when this community collapses because no one enforces the standards, don't come crying to me. She turned on her heel and stormed off down the street, the folder still clutched like a trophy. I thought that was the meltdown we'd been waiting for, but the next week proved me wrong. Tuesday morning, a letter arrived. Not from Karen, not even from the HOA, but from the County Zoning Commission. It stated that my property was under review for unauthorized modifications impacting neighborhood stormwater drainage. I called the number on the notice. The clerk confirmed it was a formal investigation, filed anonymously. Jenna read over my shoulder, shaking her head. She's trying to weaponize bureaucracy. Can she even do that? She can try. But it's going to backfire. They'll need proof, and once they realize it's her again, she's done. Still, we had to treat it seriously. County inspectors came by, measured the slope, checked the drain grates, nodded, and left. No issues found. But the damage was psychological. Neighbors started whispering. A few asked cautious questions. Everything okay with the HOA? Heard there's a drainage issue? Karen's gossip was seeping through the neighborhood like mold. By Thursday, Jenna had had enough. She's not just annoying anymore. She's undermining public trust. I'm filing an official nuisance complaint. I raised an eyebrow. Is that legal, coming from you? I won't file it as sheriff. I'll file it as a homeowner. Just another citizen sick of being bullied. She did. The county received multiple statements from other residents too, people Karen had terrorized long before we moved in. A guy down the block admitted she'd once threatened to fine him for painting his door the wrong shade of white. Another confessed she'd entered his yard to inspect weeds. It wasn't just us. Karen's entire empire was built on intimidation and the illusion of authority. And now, that illusion was crumbling. Friday evening, I caught her on her porch, muttering into her phone again. She was pale, frantic, pacing. When she noticed me watching, she snapped, enjoying this. You think you've won. I think we're both tired, I said. Maybe take a break from pretending to be the law. Her eyes narrowed. I am the law here. The HOA gives me that right. Karen, I said softly, you called the sheriff's department on the sheriff. Maybe it's time to admit you're in over your head. She didn't respond. Just turned and slammed her door. Later that night, a strange noise woke me, a faint grinding sound from outside. When I looked through the blinds, I froze. A tow truck was backing into my driveway. I ran outside barefoot. The driver looked confused. Ma'am said this vehicle was abandoned and needed removal. I pointed at the house across the street. That ma'am. He looked where I pointed, sighed, and shook his head. Figures. She's been calling all week trying to get a car towed. She didn't mention she doesn't own the property? He smiled wryly. She did. Said the HOA gave her permission. Let me guess, you didn't see any paperwork. He chuckled. Nope. But I'm leaving before this gets weirder. As the truck rolled off, I stood in the cold night air, realizing something terrifying. Karen wasn't just desperate now, she was unhinged. She'd lost control of the narrative, the board, the neighbors, even the cop. And when people like her lose control, they don't surrender. They escalate. Jenna came outside, robe tied, hand on her hip. She tried to tow your truck? Yep. Jenna sighed. Then it's time. She wants a war. She's going to get one. But this time, we play it smart. How smart? I asked. She smiled. A slow, dangerous smile I'd seen only twice before, both times on duty. Smart enough that when she calls the cops next time, it'll be me answering again. The next morning, Jenna was already awake before dawn, coffee steaming beside a stack of legal folders. I'd seen that look before, her case face, as her deputies called it. Calm, methodical, lethal. I'm done waiting for her to self-destruct, she said. We're going to box her in properly. No shouting, no public fights, no drama. Just paper, procedure, and patience. You mean a legal trap? She smiled faintly. The only kind that holds. By noon, she'd drafted 3 complaints, one to the HOA board for harassment and abuse of authority, one to the county for misuse of emergency services, and one to the postal inspector for tampering, because, as she'd discovered, Karen had opened one of our certified mail letters by mistake. Each complaint was airtight, backed with video, timestamps, and witness statements. Meanwhile, I played my part. I started acting like the ideal, silent neighbor, smiling, waving, mowing the lawn, ignoring her provocations. The quieter I became, the louder her paranoia grew. The shift was subtle but visible. Karen began pacing her porch at odd hours, talking to herself. She started filming random cars driving by, muttering into her phone. A few neighbors stopped greeting her altogether. I saw curtains twitch whenever she appeared outside. Then the letters began again, but this time they were anonymous. One arrived on Monday, typed neatly on blank paper. You think your badge protects you? Wait until the truth comes out. Another on Wednesday. The sheriff's office can't save you when the HOA votes you out. Jenna read them quietly, lips pressed tight. She's not even pretending anymore, she said. This is personal. We filed them too. Everything went into the same growing folder labeled evidence. But Karen wasn't done. That Friday, she called for an emergency HOA meeting. The notice was shoved into everyone's mailboxes with her signature at the bottom, mandatory attendance. Discussion on officer misconduct and neighborhood integrity. I could practically feel Jenna's blood pressure rise. Officer misconduct, she repeated. She's staging a public trial. Let her, I said. If she wants an audience, let's give her one. The meeting was held in the clubhouse, a beige, echoing room with folding chairs and 2 bright lights. Half the neighborhood showed up, drawn by curiosity and morbid fascination. Karen stood at the front like a politician mid-scandal, papers clutched dramatically in both hands. Thank you all for coming, she began. It's come to my attention that certain individuals in our community are abusing their positions of power to intimidate homeowners and undermine the HOA's lawful authority. Bill, the weary president, groaned audibly. Karen, please. She cut him off. This is not personal. This is about fairness. About protecting our neighborhood from corruption. Jenna and I sat in the second row. She wore plain clothes, not her uniform, but everyone knew who she was. Karen avoided looking in our direction, which made her look even more unhinged. I have here, Karen said, holding up a folder, a collection of documents proving repeated violations, threats, and conflicts of interest. Are any of them real? Someone in the back asked. She ignored the question. We cannot have law enforcement officials using their authority to silence civilian oversight. This is America. A few people clapped awkwardly. Most just stared. Then Jenna stood up. The room went still. "May I speak?" she said calmly. Karen faltered. "This is an HOA meeting, not a court of law." "Exactly," Jenna said. "Which means this room has no legal authority to accuse anyone of misconduct. However," she stepped forward, "since you've chosen to make those claims publicly, I'll respond publicly." She pulled a small folder from her bag. "Every letter, every complaint, every late-night call, it's all documented. The sheriff's department has verified that all allegations against my husband are false. Furthermore, we have video evidence of you trespassing, filing false reports, and tampering with mail." Karen's face went paper white. "That's a lie." Jenna flipped open her folder. "The footage is time-stamped and stored on 3 separate servers. Would you like me to play it for everyone?" A murmur spread through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, she really did go in his yard at night." Bill raised his hands. "All right, let's take a breath here." Jenna didn't raise her voice, but she didn't need to. "Karen, I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. But your behavior has crossed from overzealous to unlawful. I'm filing a restraining order. Effective immediately." The room went silent. Karen's jaw dropped. You can't do that." "I already have," Jenna said. "The paperwork was submitted this morning." The silence broke like a dam. People started whispering, phones came out, someone gasped. Karen's hands trembled as she gathered her papers, face flushed with humiliation. "This is harassment," she shrieked. "All of you are complicit. You'll regret siding with her." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard it echoed through the clubhouse. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Bill sighed and rubbed his face. "Meeting adjourned, I guess." Outside, the night air was thick with murmurs. Neighbors approached us quietly, some apologizing for believing her stories, others thanking Jenna for standing up to her. It should have ended there. But Karen wasn't built to retreat. The next morning, the local Facebook group was on fire. Karen had posted a 1,500-word rant titled "Corruption in Whispering Pines, When Law Enforcement Becomes the Enemy." She accused us of weaponizing authority, gaslighting homeowners, and colluding with county officials to cover up illegal property expansions. She even posted screenshots, cropped and edited, to make it look like I'd threatened her. By noon, the post had over 200 comments. Half the neighborhood defended her, half mocked her, and the rest just watched like it was a reality show. Jenna scrolled through it, shaking her head. "She's slandering us online now." "Defamation case?" I suggested. "Tempting," she said, "but unnecessary. She's already buried herself. All we need to do is let the system catch up." And the system did. Fast. By Wednesday, the restraining order was approved. A deputy, ironically one of Jenna's own, delivered it to Karen's door. She tried to refuse it until he read the words, "Court mandated." Then she snatched the envelope, slammed the door, and screamed loud enough to rattle her windows. That night, I expected peace. Instead, I heard tires screech outside around midnight. I peeked through the blinds and saw Karen standing in her driveway, phone pressed to her ear, shouting at someone. Her porch light flickered erratically. Then came the flashing lights, another patrol unit. But this time, it wasn't one of ours. It was a state trooper. They talked for a while. Then she pointed at our house, furious, arms flailing. The trooper nodded, said something, and drove away. When I stepped outside, she yelled across the street, "You think you've won? I'll take this to the governor if I have to." I folded my arms. "Maybe start with therapy." Her scream echoed down the whole street. The next morning, a new email arrived, from the state's Office of Civil Complaints. It was almost comical now. She'd filed yet another abuse of authority claim. But this time, she'd submitted her own edited videos as proof. Unfortunately for her, the investigators requested the originals, which meant they came straight to us. Jenna handed over our footage, the uncut, time-stamped truth. A week later, we got an update, complaint dismissed. Evidence found to be deliberately falsified. Subject to review for false reporting. I looked at Jenna, stunned. She's under investigation? She nodded. Finally. That night, for the first time in months, our street was silent. No porch lights flickering, no yelling, no notes taped to mailboxes. Karen's house was dark. Curtains drawn. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was over. Until the next morning, when a county vehicle pulled up again. A man stepped out holding a clipboard and a demolition notice. "Mr. Reed," he said, "we've received a directive for partial removal of your fence due to drainage obstruction." I blinked. From who? He looked at the form. Signed by HOA Representative Karen Whitmore. I laughed. She's under investigation. He shrugged. Still got the authority until the board votes her out. Jenna stepped out onto the porch, her face hardening. Then I guess it's time we make that vote happen. She glanced at me, a quiet determination in her eyes. She started this war with paperwork. We'll end it the same way, one signature at a time. The next morning, Jenna turned our living room into a command post. Legal pads, HOA bylaws, and a pot of coffee big enough to fuel a stakeout covered the dining table. She wasn't acting as sheriff now, she was acting as a strategist. Calm. Surgical. Determined. "Here's the plan," she said. "If we want Karen gone, we don't fight her emotions. We fight her procedures. The HOA charter allows a recall vote for any officer by simple majority. And she's head of the compliance committee," I said. "So we make her non-compliant." Jenna smiled faintly. "Exactly." By noon, we started knocking on doors. I didn't expect much. Neighbors usually avoided HOA politics like the plague, but I was wrong. People were ready. The first house we visited, a young couple with 2 kids, opened the door before we even knocked. "Please tell us this is about Karen," the husband said. "It is." He practically snatched the clipboard out of my hand. "Where do we sign?" The stories poured out like floodwater. Karen had fined someone for leaving a holiday wreath up too long. She'd entered a backyard to measure a trampoline. She'd reported another neighbor's teenage son for parking too confidently. Everyone had a story, and every story had the same ending: fear, exhaustion, resentment. By sunset, we had 18 signatures. We needed 21 to trigger a formal vote. Jenna double-checked every line. "Tomorrow we finish this." But Karen wasn't blind. That night, she went door to door herself, knocking furiously, armed with flyers accusing us of community sabotage. I watched from the window as she cornered Mrs. Hill, the elderly widow at the corner lot. Karen's voice carried even from half a block away. "They're lying to you, Doris. The Reeds are manipulating the neighborhood. They're abusing power." Doris, bless her, just pointed at her "Support law enforcement" sticker and closed the door. Karen stood there for a few seconds, shaking with rage, then crumpled the flyer in her hand and threw it into the street. The next morning, I found her pacing in front of my house again, muttering, "You think you can take me down with a popularity contest? I built this HOA from nothing." I walked out with my coffee, deliberately unbothered. "You built it, Karen? Or did you just weaponize it?" She jabbed her clipboard toward me. "You and your wife have no idea what it's like to be powerless, to watch people break rules while you're the only one holding things together." Her voice cracked on that last word. For a second, I saw something raw under all the arrogance: fear. Not of me, but of irrelevance. Of losing control. "I used to matter," she whispered. "People respected me." I sighed. "Then maybe it's time to earn that respect again, not bully it out of people." Her eyes glistened, but only for a second. Then the steel returned. "You'll regret this." By afternoon, we had 23 signatures. Bill, the HOA president, looked more alive than he had in months. "It's official," he said, holding the papers like a peace treaty. "We'll have the recall vote this Saturday. No more letters, no more screaming matches. Just democracy." Jenna nodded. "Make sure it's recorded and transparent." She'll try to challenge the results. She always does, Bill muttered. The news spread fast. By Friday, the entire neighborhood buzzed with anticipation. Some people were nervous, others gleeful, a few outright jubilant. It felt less like a meeting and more like the season finale of a long-running drama. But Karen wasn't done. Friday night, around 10, I was closing up the garage when I saw headlights flicker across my lawn. A truck I didn't recognize slowed to a stop near my fence. A man in work overalls jumped out, looked around, and started unloading tools. I walked closer. "Can I help you?" He glanced up nervously. "Got a work order here. Fence adjustment. HOA request." I took the paper from his hand. It was a forged maintenance slip, poorly printed, signed K. Whitmore, Compliance Director. "She sent you?" I asked. He scratched his head. "Lady called earlier, said it was urgent. Offered double pay if I came tonight." "Yeah," I said, "you're about to get a refund." Jenna came out a moment later, took one look at the paper, and sighed. "She's getting reckless. We let the worker leave without issue. He was just caught in the crossfire." But when I turned back toward Karen's house, I saw her curtains move. She'd been watching. "She wanted confrontation," Jenna murmured. "She's baiting us into reacting before the vote. Then we don't give her the satisfaction." Saturday came like a courtroom verdict. The clubhouse was packed again, neighbors lining the walls, whispers bouncing off the ceiling. Karen stood near the front, dressed sharply, lips painted in defiance. You could tell she'd rehearsed whatever speech she planned to deliver. Bill stepped up to the podium. "All right, everyone. We're here to vote on the recall of Compliance Director Karen Whitmore. Ballots are anonymous. Majority rules." Karen's smile was brittle but unwavering. "I'd just like to remind everyone," she said loudly, "that order doesn't sustain itself. Without leadership, this community falls apart." Someone in the back muttered, "Then maybe it should." The ballots passed down the rows. I marked mine and folded it quietly. Jenna did the same. The atmosphere was electric, almost unreal, the collective energy of years of frustration condensing into one fragile moment. When Bill finally opened the box and began counting, you could hear every heartbeat. 11, 14, 17, 22, 24. He paused. Total votes, 27. In favor of recall, 21. Gasps, murmurs, a few clap. Karen's eyes widened, face pale. "You can't do this. I founded this HOA. I am the rules." Bill exhaled heavily. "Not anymore, Karen." She looked around for allies, but no one met her gaze. Even her former supporters stared at the floor. Her voice cracked. "You're all cowards." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of the fluorescent lights flickered. For the first time in months, people actually smiled. Someone started passing around cookies. Mrs. Hill hugged Jenna and said, "You did what we all wanted to do years ago." It felt like closure. Except Karen didn't go quietly. That evening, the neighborhood Facebook group exploded again. She posted a shaky video of herself standing by the lake, ranting about tyranny, corruption, and the end of freedom in Whispering Pines. Her tone had changed from righteous to unhinged. Then she made a threat. "They think they can take everything from me," she said, eyes wild. "But they can't stop what's coming." The video cut off abruptly. Jenna saw it 10 minutes later and went cold. "That's not bluster," she said. "She's planning something." We called dispatch, quietly, no drama. A patrol unit checked on her house, lights off, car gone. They filed a wellness report. But at 3 a.m., we woke to flashing red lights and shouting outside. A fire truck. The air stank of smoke. I ran to the window and saw flames licking the edge of Karen's front porch. Neighbors were pouring out, shouting, calling 911. Jenna was already out the door, barefoot, running toward it. I grabbed the extinguisher and followed. By the time we got there, the fire was small but spreading fast, some kind of accelerant near the flower bed. A half-empty gas can lay on the grass. One of the neighbors shouted, "She's not inside. I saw her car leave earlier. Jenna took charge instantly, barking orders like it was another crime scene. Get that hose. You, call dispatch again, tell them possible arson. We managed to contain it before it reached the siding. Smoke still curled into the cold night air, thick and bitter. Jenna crouched near the can, frowning. That's not old gas. This was fresh. I looked toward the road, where tire tracks cut through the dew. She did this herself. Jenna's jaw tightened. She's unraveling. The next morning, the county fire marshal confirmed what we already knew. Deliberate ignition, no evidence of outside interference. But Karen was gone. Her house sat dark, front door chained, mail overflowing. The HOA chat buzzed with speculation. Some said she'd fled to her sister's place, others that she was hiding out in a motel. Jenna didn't say much. She just stared out the window, thoughtful. She's not done, she finally said. People like Karen don't vanish. They wait. They plot. And she was right. Because a week later, an envelope arrived. No return address, typed label, mailed from 2 towns over. Inside was a single sheet of paper, printed in bold. You took everything from me. So now I'll take something from you. When the letter came, Jenna read it twice, then set it down on the table without a word. The air in our kitchen felt heavier, as if the paper itself carried static. I picked it up again, rereading the message, short, bold, and chilling. You took everything from me. So now I'll take something from you. I'd dealt with angry people before. I'd worked in construction long enough to see plenty of disputes turn ugly, but this was different. There was intent behind those words, deliberate and cold. Jenna didn't speak for a full minute. She just stared at the wall, her coffee untouched, eyes sharp and calculating. All right, she said finally. No more reacting. From now on, we document, prepare, and wait. She's escalating, but she's not invisible. I nodded. You think she's actually planning something? Jenna's tone was steady, but her hands were tight around her mug. I think Karen's identity was built on control. When people like her lose it, they don't disappear. They try to take control back, no matter how irrational it gets. That night, we upgraded everything. Motion lights, security alarms, a dash cam in each vehicle, and extra cameras along the back fence. Duke stayed indoors. Jenna coordinated with the department, quietly flagging Karen's name for any local traffic or disturbance calls. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet net waiting. Days passed without incident. No sightings. No new letters. Just silence, eerie and incomplete. But silence from someone like Karen wasn't peace. It was a pause before the next strike. On Thursday, around 2 a.m., one of the cameras pinged an alert. Movement at the edge of the property. I checked the feed, expecting raccoons. But it wasn't an animal. It was headlights. A dark SUV idled by the curb, engine off, lights flicked out after a few seconds. Then the driver's door opened. A figure stepped out, small frame, long coat, moving quickly toward the mailbox. Jenna, I said quietly, she's back. She was already awake, gun holstered, voice low. Don't engage. Just record. The figure bent near our mailbox, fumbling with something metallic. I zoomed in. She was zip-tying something, a folded stack of papers, to the post. Then she turned, looking straight toward the camera. Even from the grainy night vision footage, I could see her eyes. Wild, determined, gleaming with something beyond reason. Karen. The next morning, the evidence was sitting in the sunlight, a stack of flyers plastered with red ink and fury. Sheriff Reed abuses power. Corruption in our county. Demand accountability now. Each one had a fake seal, a forged signature, and a link to some anonymous petition that didn't exist. Jenna picked one up, expression unreadable. She's trying to provoke a response. She wants a confrontation she can record. She wants an audience, I said. But the crowd's gone. Still, Jenna filed another report. The state already had her under review for falsifying complaints. Now, this crossed into harassment again. 2 nights later, it happened. It was just after midnight when the alarm went off. Not the motion alert this time, but the full system. The garage sensor tripped, followed by the rear floodlight flicking on. I grabbed my flashlight, Jenna her weapon. Duke barked once, deep and sharp. We crept through the hallway quietly, years of Jenna's training turning our home into a tactical zone. She gave me a look. The kind that said stay behind me, no matter what happens. When she opened the side door, the beam from her flashlight caught movement near the generator. A figure hunched, cutting cables. Sparks flickered against the concrete. Sheriff's Department. Step away from the equipment. The figure froze, then turned. Karen squinted against the light, face streaked with sweat, hair wild. She was holding bolt cutters. "You can't silence me," she shouted. "You don't deserve any of this." "Put the tool down, Karen," Jenna said, voice calm, measured, the same tone she used with armed suspects. "You're trespassing and damaging property. You need to stop right now." Karen took a step forward, shaking. "You ruined my life. You took my reputation, my home. You burned your own porch," I said. Her eyes snapped to me, wild and glassy. "You set me up. You edited everything. Everyone's turned against me." Jenna moved closer, slow and deliberate. "No one set you up. But you're about to make things worse if you don't stop." For a split second, I thought she might drop the cutters. But then she swung them, not at us, but at the generator's wiring again. A burst of sparks shot upward, lighting her face like a horror movie flash. Jenna moved fast, closing the distance in seconds. She grabbed Karen's wrist, twisted the cutters free, and guided her to the ground. It wasn't violent, but it was decisive, professional restraint, not anger. Karen kicked once, then stopped, panting, her face crumpling. "Why can't you just leave me alone?" she whispered. "Because you keep showing up," Jenna said quietly. "And because I have to protect my family." The patrol unit arrived 5 minutes later. Karen didn't resist when they cuffed her. She just stared blankly at the flashing lights, muttering about conspiracies and power. The official charges came the next morning: trespassing, vandalism, harassment, and violation of a restraining order. Jenna stayed detached through the paperwork, but I could tell it weighed on her. This wasn't a win she enjoyed. It was a necessary one. The county prosecutor moved quickly. Within a week, Karen was ordered to undergo psychiatric evaluation and placed under temporary supervision. The news spread quietly without celebration, more relief than triumph. Neighbors stopped by one to thank us, not with fanfare, but with casseroles, flowers, and cautious smiles. The mood in Whispering Pines shifted. The fear that had hung over the place like humidity finally broke. One afternoon, Bill came over with a small envelope. "Thought you'd want to see this," he said. Inside was an official notice. "The HOA Compliance Committee is hereby dissolved until further notice." "Peace at last," he said. Jenna smiled faintly. "Let's hope it stays that way." Weeks passed. The grass grew, the mail stopped carrying threats, and Duke finally learned to nap on the porch again. Life crept back to normal. But every now and then, I'd catch myself looking across the street at Karen's dark, empty house, blinds drawn, a "for sale" sign leaning slightly in the wind. Jenna caught me once and said, "You still thinking about her?" "Yeah," I admitted. "It's strange. Someone can cause that much chaos and then just vanish." "She didn't vanish," Jenna said softly. "She just ran out of control." She was right. Control, that was always the root of it. Karen needed rules because rules gave her power. When that illusion broke, she didn't know who she was without it. Months later, the house finally sold. The new owners, a quiet retired couple, moved in without incident. No letters, no demands, no calls to the cop. The street felt lighter, almost unfamiliar. One evening, I found Jenna sitting on the porch, watching the lake turn gold in the sunset. She had that rare, peaceful expression, the kind she wore when the world made sense again. "Think it's finally over?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "At least until the next Karen moves in." We both laughed. The kind of tired, knowing laugh that comes after a storm. Then she added, "You know, the funniest part is that she called the sheriff on us." I grinned. Yeah. That moment will live rent-free in my head forever. Jenna leaned back in her chair, sipping her iced tea. "She called the sheriff," she said again, smiling, "and got exactly what she asked for." I looked across the lake as the sun dipped below the waterline, the world finally still. The HOA meetings stopped. The mail stayed clean. No phone calls, no pounding on doors. Just quiet, real, earned quiet. And for the first time since moving to Whispering Pines, I realized something funny. It wasn't the view or the porch or even the peace that made this place worth it. It was the fact that we'd survived the worst neighbor imaginable, and done it by never sinking to her level. Karen had called the sheriff on us, but in the end it was the sheriff who saved her from herself.